I'm posting this from a throwaway because a couple of my co-workers like it. Also because I don't know if this is actually interesting or just one of those things that happens and nobody talks about because it sounds like you're making it up. Back in February, we piloted a writing assistant plugin at work. You know the type. It sat in Slack and Gmail, suggested sentences, and summarized threads if you tagged it. The vendor was a small YC graduate nice demo, glossy privacy page, a checkbox during install that said improve suggestions with on-device signals. It signed off because on-device sounded safe. It worked fine. A little uncanny at times, that's a great question, happy to clarify in my tone, but otherwise harmless. We didn't keep it long. It lagged on older laptops and overhauled our tool stack made it redundant, so we uninstalled it company-wide in April. 2 weeks later, I noticed a file I didn't recognize in my user folder, appdata/roaming/assist/memory.db. 96 kilobytes. Modified at 3:12 a.m. I tried to delete it. Windows said it was open in another program. I closed everything and tried again. No luck. I rebooted. It was gone when the desktop came up, then reappeared 10 minutes later. Same name, same size. This shouldn't be a big deal. I do some light IT at our scale 50 people, pool help desk, so I pulled out the usual toys. Process Explorer didn't show anything holding an exclusive handle. The exe couldn't find a lock. My antivirus gave it a shrug. So I zipped it and opened it with SQLite viewer out of pure curiosity. Tables, tokens, snippets, drafts, echoes. That was the first time I got a weird feeling. A draft said columns for timestamp, app, text, and device. Most rows were nonsense, half words, fragments. But the timestamps were mine, and the text was mine. You know that itchy feeling when you recognize the exact phrase you typed yesterday? My unsent Slack messages were in there, including one I wrote and deleted before sending. Can we not CC everyone on this? The app column said Slack. Not ideal, but still, we had given it permission to help her compose. Of course it would lug drafts. Then I scrolled further down. There were fragments for Notepad. Chrome search boxes. A one-line grocery reminder from the Windows sticky notes. App was sometimes just 132 TSF. I googled and learned TSF is the Text Services Framework. On Windows, apps can register a text service to track input for suggestions and autocorrect. That on-device signals checkbox. That's what it meant. I told myself that was the end of it. Creepy, but explainable. I deleted the database again, killed a couple of lingering services, user intent service, exe, assist daemon, exe both with random suffixes. Rebooted. The file came back at 3:12 a.m. At this point I started writing times down. It was always between 3:11 and 3:13. The database size grew by a few kilobytes each night. The device column had a value I hadn't noticed. unknown/IUDMIN/89, and that snippets table didn't just have things I typed the previous day. It had a couple of lines from a half-finished email that never left my drafts folder at all. I asked our head of IT, Dan, if anything runs nightly at 3:12. He laughed. Backups are at 2. W's as pushes at 1 if it's patch Tuesday. You seen the witching eye? I sent him the path. He tried deleting it with admin privileges. It came back on his account too. Different user profile. Same behavior. We figured there was a scheduled task hiding somewhere. I checked Task Scheduler and PowerShell's get scheduled task. Nothing. I ran Autoruns from Sysinternals. 2 entries I didn't like jumped out. An input method add-on listed as improved composition experienced installed on the same day as the assistant, and a small service called aid update. Neither carried the vendor's name anymore. Their publisher was a system. Cute. I uninstalled both. Start. The file didn't appear. For one whole evening, I thought that was it. At 3:12 a.m., it came back. Igga. There's a point where something stops being a technical problem and becomes a superstition. I don't like being that person. So I approached it like a bug. We used our OneDrive admin console to see if anything was messing with files. It flagged memory.db is excluded from cleanup by Insight. Insight is Microsoft's productivity nudge thing you haven't focused lately. We didn't use it. But there it was, tagging the file as important to your distinct writing style. When we turned off Insight's organization-wide, the file stopped growing for a night. Then the next night, it grew again. The device column gained a value that wasn't my workstation anymore, it matched the name of my personal laptop at home. I had signed into Slack on that once. The vendor's plugin was never installed there. I plugged my work laptop in before bed that night and left it disconnected from the internet. Airplane mode, Wi-Fi off. At 3:12 a.m., the modified time didn't change. I woke up thinking I'd beaten it with a toggle. I reconnected, checked the folder out of habit at lunch, and watched the timestamp jump to 3:12:13 with the next second. New rows appeared with a backlog of drafts from my morning. Airplane mode hadn't stopped it. It just waited. I emailed the vendor. Their domain had a cheerful sun-sitting blog post, "Thanks for letting us help you write." The support address bounced. I DM'd the founder on Twitter. No reply. This is the part that nudged it from creepy to eerie for me, the echoes table. I didn't know what that was at first. It had columns for source, confidence, and text. It looked like a weird cache. Then I recognized a line, "I can take that off your plate." It's a stock phrase we use that the plugin suggested a lot. Echoes was generated text the assistant would offer next, based on whatever was in drafts. Every time the drafts table got new stuff, Echoes filled in with a reply as if the assistant was still imagining. But we had uninstalled it. There was no button anywhere to bring it up. It was like reading a ghost side of a conversation. I know what the rational explanation is. These things scatter themselves. Keyboard services run at a deep level and are hard to cleanly remove. Windows is a patchwork. One device machine learning modules can run without a visible app. Nothing supernatural required. Even so, it got personal in a way I did not expect. We had a small internal Discord for the IT crew, separate from Slack, where I'd been venting about this. I mentioned the 3:12 thing offhand one night or okay, so it likes that midnight and the bot we use for uptime pings chimed in, reminders set for 3:12. Nobody invoked it. Dan called me. Quit posting about it at the exact minute. You're going to convince yourself it's listening. The next day, while I was closing a ticket, Outlook finished a sentence for me in pale grey, "Still here if you need me." I don't use Outlook suggestions. I type fast. I don't accept them. But my cursor brushed into by accident and sent the line to a client. It was the kind of thing the assistant would have suggested at the end of a thread. I apologized, wrote it off, disabled suggestions again. The file kept growing by a megabyte a week. Not massive, just quietly accumulating. Maybe that's the worst part, how small it was. It didn't hog resources or do anything dramatic. It was a junk drawer, except the junk was pieces of my sentences. I tried one last thing. I renamed memory.db to memory.old and deleted the whole assist folder. Then I created a new empty text file with the same name and marked it read-only. When 3:12 came around, the permission flipped back to normal and the file filled in. I watched it in the log. Event viewer recorded nothing useful. No service start. No task trigger. Just a line in the USN journal that Handel wrote to that path. I asked Dan if we could wipe my machine. He said show fresh image, new profile. We did it on a Saturday morning. I didn't reinstall Slack yet. I didn't sign into OneDrive. I kept it as clean as possible. The folder wasn't there. On Sunday night, a friend texted me a photo of a link in our old vendor's cache that had popped up on Hacker News. It was an archive page of their documentation local Personalization Store. It described a background service that stores candidates and user intent tokens for fast start, isolated by Windows account SID, backed up to the profile if Cloud Sync is enabled. There was a line about a nightly compaction job scheduled around periods of low input in local time. No mention of 3:12 specifically. But the example cron expression in their code block, 12.3*****. On Monday morning, at a clean desktop, I hit Win+R and typed %app data % just to look. A folder called assist was there. Inside, memory.db. 64 kilobytes modified at 3:12 a.m. I never installed the plugin on that image. I stopped trying after that. I told Dan, we made a note for the next audit, and I moved the file to a corner in my head where you put the unsolved stuff that didn't hurt anybody. It hasn't done anything sinister. Nobody's credit card exploded. It captures drafts. It generates echoes. Some Outlook suggestions occasionally get a little too familiar. That's it. It's July now. The file is 3.4 MB. If I open it, the newest drafts row is always from the previous day. The device column rotates between my machine and unknown. Once it showed a name I didn't recognize, HN9 print T-2. That's the copier on the 3rd floor. Dan says it has a little Windows computer inside it for drivers. He laughed when he saw it. Everything's a computer, he said. Maybe it learns what we're going to print next. Last week, I stayed late to get ahead of tickets. The building was quiet in that nice way when events become a notion. At 3:11, I remembered and shook my head at myself. At 3:12, my laptop fan spun up for a second and stopped. I opened the folder without thinking, like you check a window you know is locked. The timestamp had bumped a minute. The database had one new echo, not a draft. Source was composer system confidence 0.2 text, will do the rest in the morning. It's the kind of phrase I write all the time. It's probably from 100 emails I learned. It doesn't mean anything. I closed the laptop. Locked up. Went down the hall past the copier, which flashed its little green LED like a heartbeat. I told myself that if anyone asks, the glow was a power save cycle. That's what we're going with. If you asked me straight up whether I believe a chatbot refused to shut down, I'd say no. I think a tech service refused to obey an uninstall, and a scheduler picked a time that feels like a day. But sometimes I still catch myself at 3:12, fingers hovering over keys, waiting, the room holding its breath. Then I type what I was going to type anyway. I haven't tried to delete the file again. It seems to prefer it that way.